Hi, and welcome to the Veterans Corner. My name is Chuck Woodin. I'll be your host. After taking about a year and a half off, we have decided to return on a part-time basis. We return with the same commitment and mission that we had before. That is to bring to you, the viewers, important veterans issues that pertain to the veteran community and their families. Our guests today are from the American Legion, from Post 209 in Forestville. We will be discussing the saga of the four chaplains. Some of you might have heard of the four chaplains, the U.S. Army chaplains. If you haven't, you will find this very informative, I'm sure. If you have, I'm sure you'll still learn more about these heroic chaplains who gave their ultimate sacrifice for this country. Let's do the introduction of the guests. We'll start with my left, I guess. To my left is someone who's not new to the Veterans Corner, John Wright. John is our director. We pulled him out of the director booth today for this special show. John, welcome. John is the squadron commander at Squadron 209, which is part of Post 209. Commander John Wright.
Good afternoon,
welcome,
Chuck.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To my right is Post 209 historian, Bruce Barton. Bruce, welcome,
Chuck.
Welcome to the show. And all the way on the other side of the table, we have probably the most important person at the table, the Post commander, Brian Avery. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Chuck.
It's great to have you guys on board. One thing that we try to do when we start these shows is just to go around the table and ask about your military service, the branch, and just when you served. You don't have to really get into it, but just, let's start with you, Brian.
United States Army, entered in 1986, left in 1997.
Yeah. Bruce.
United States Navy, 1968 to 72, aviation ordnance, made 3 Westpac cruises to Vietnam.
Well, I knew we were sitting next to each other for a reason. Go Navy. John.
Marine Corps. I served from 79 to 81.
Yeah, well,
Camp Pendleton.
On behalf of the crew here at the Veterans Corner, we want to really thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Let's get right into this. The four chaplains has been around for a long time, but not very many people know actually who they are. So hopefully after this show, we'll have a better understanding. Let's start off with the individual chaplains themselves. Chaplain Washington. I believe he was a Catholic, right?
Yes, he was a Catholic priest.
Yeah. Brian, you want to dive into that?
His name was John P. Washington. He was a Catholic priest. He was born on July 18th, 1908. John Washington grew up in one of the toughest sections in Newark, New Jersey. He was one of 9 children born in an Irish immigrant family. He was blessed with a sunny disposition and the love of music. He also loved a good fight, as he was a member of the South 12th Street Gang. When the war broke out, he went into the Army with his boys. He began active duty on May 9th, 1942. He was raised in song and prayer to comfort those around him. Washington's beautiful voice could be heard over the cries of the dying in the final moments of February 3rd, 1943.
Yeah, there's, it's, just hearing you say that brings back a lot of memories of myself. I mean, John, we've been to a lot of ceremonies. I think the viewers will agree that at the end of this show, you'll find the show very touching.
Yes.
John, you want to talk about Pastor Reverend Pullen?
Clark Pullen was the youngest of 4 chaplains, Chuck. He was Dutch Reformed minister, 7th generation in an unbroken line of ministers. Just before he went off to war, he asked his father to pray for him, not not for his safe return home, but for that wouldn't be fair. So,
Yeah.
and you know, that he had a good understanding of men, and that's why he didn't want him to pray for his safety, safe coming home.
Yeah, it was, you know, once again, after we're finished with this, there's a lot of history here. Bruce, would you like to go with Reverend Pastor Scott? Methodist, right? I think.
Yes, that was George Fox.
Yeah.
George Fox was the oldest of the 4 ministers from Vermont. He lied about his age to enlist in the Army for World War I. He received the Silver Star for rescuing a wounded soldier from the battlefield, suffered poison gas, and he wore no gas mask himself to run out and rescue a wounded soldier. He also received the Croix de Guerre for outstanding bravery during an artillery barrage that left him with a broken spine.
Wow.
Having fought through that war, he re-enlisted for World War II, and then went down with the Dorseter.
You know, and the last one, I don't know who wants to take that. It's Rabbi Goody or Good. Some pronounce it either way. Anybody want to start with that one and let the viewers know? You have it there.
All right, I'll start. That was Alexander Good, or Goody. We're not exactly sure how the pronunciation should go. Our respects to the family. He grew up in Washington, D.C., was an outstanding athlete and a scholar. He followed in his father's footsteps. He loved to study, and he liked sports. He found time to serve in the National Guard, and he was a family man. And he did enlist in the Army prior to World War II. Next.
Yeah, that's
the gist of it.
Yeah, you know, this gives you an idea of who these 4 chaplains were. The next part, I think we're going to get into the actual saga, the story of nothing but pure heroics that took place that evening. Brian, would you like to dive into that?
Absolutely. So this is the story of the 4 chaplains. It started on the evening of February 2nd, 1943. The USAT Dorchester was carrying 902 U.S. troops, merchant marines, and civilian workers. The Dorchester was once a luxury coastal liner that has been converted into an Army transportation ship. The Dorchester was one of 3 ships in the SG-19 convoy, and it was moving steady across the icy waters of Newfoundland towards the U.S. base in Greenland. It was escorted by the U.S. Coast Guard cutters Tampa, Escarbe, and the Comanche escorted the convoy. The captain was named Hans Danielson. The ship captain was concerned and cautious because earlier in that day, the cutter Tampa had detected a German submarine by sonar. The captain knew that it was in dangerous waters because many ships have been sunk in this area. The Dorchester was only about 150 miles away from its destination. The captain gave an order to all the men to wear all their clothes and their life jackets. Many of the men disregarded this order because the heat from the engines made it unbearable and the life jackets were not comfortable. So unfortunately, the men disregarded the order, and this ended up being a tragic mistake.
Yeah.
On February 3rd at 12:55 a.m., the German U-boat U-223 spotted the Dorchester. After identifying its target, it fired 3 torpedoes with devastating results. Alerted that the Dorchester was sinking rapidly, the captain gave the order to abandon ship. In less than 20 minutes, the Dorchester would slip beneath the Atlantic's icy water.
That's where the 4 chaplains really come to life for us, Brian. They knew that they had men coming out of the hull of the ship. And they were coming out without life jackets. They only had 4 life jackets between them and gloves, pairs of gloves.
Right.
And they gave 4 different men their life jackets.
Absolutely.
And gloves, and that's where the heroic part of this story really is. And the further part of this story is when the ship was actually going down, they were heard singing and praying together. 4 chaplains of different faiths. So there's a powerful message in this whole service. So, but I'm not going to go into everything because there's more we want to talk about. So.
Right. So I will continue.
Yeah, sure.
The hit knocked out all the power in the ship. It also lost communications to the escorting ships. Tampa, however, saw a flash in the explosion and responded and rescued 97 survivors. The Escambau circled around and rescued another 133 survivors. Unfortunately, 1 died later. The Comanche continued on and escorted the remaining ships. Aboard the Dorchester, panic set in. The blast killed scores of men, wounded many others, seriously wounded. The men were lost in darkness, trying to figure out where they were. Others rushed topside, only to be confronted by the cold Arctic air to realize soon that death was coming. In the panic, men started throwing lifeboats over the side of the boat. Some of these boats got so overcrowded that they capsized, and the other boats unfortunately drifted away. In the midst of all the confusion, these 4 Army chaplains brought hope in despair and light in darkness. The name of the 4 chaplains were Lieutenant George L. Fox. He was a minister. Lieutenant Alexander Good was a Jewish rabbi. Lieutenant John P. Washington was a Roman Catholic priest. And Lieutenant Clark Poling was a Dutch Reformed minister. I mean, this is when the story really starts. You see some amazing things that these people did, and you ask yourself, the courage that they must have demonstrated with the actions that they're going to be doing it's unbelievable. So then the story continues. Quickly and quietly, the 4 chaplains spread among the soldiers, trying to calm the frightened, tend to the wounded, and guide the disoriented towards safety. Witnesses in this terrible night remember hearing the 4 officers praying for the dying and encouraging those that would live to keep the faith. This was said by Wyatt Fox, the son of Reverend Fox.
Chuck, it might be a good time to mention that this is actually the 75th year anniversary of this tragic event.
It's February 3rd, 1943. That's why a lot of the American Legion posts, primarily the American Legion posts, there are other VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations, that do honor the 4 chaplains. But the American Legion does step up, and nationwide, every state plays a role, with their Legion posts.
Absolutely.
But,
the amazing part of this story is hearing the stories of the witnesses and how they described the things that happened during this night and how it ultimately was a horrible night that they'll never forget, but it also brought them together.
What goes through my mind reading this story and hearing the saga of this whole thing, first of all, these men were already in a tough situation. They knew that they were leaving Newfoundland and going into enemy waters, heavily infested with U-boats, wolf packs, number 1. Number 2, when the torpedo hit, if the ship went down in 20 minutes, they had to know almost instantly that this ship was crippled beyond repair. Now, a ship's crew, their first duty is to try and save the ship. Realizing that's a futile effort, you got to save as many of your fellow crewmen. Meanwhile, there's pandemonium, because these troops going overseas, they don't know what they're supposed to do, but they know that they're not going to stay on a sinking ship. I don't know if they had lifeboat drills back then, but I would imagine that they had to have done something. But of course, all of that must have been forgotten because the ship is sinking so rapidly. They also know they're not going to last long in frigid weather. I'm sure many of these troops going overseas have experienced some cold weather, and they know that jumping into the Atlantic is not really a great choice, but it's the only choice they have of staying alive. And then having 4 men handing out life jackets as best they can, no lights, they're working in the dark. The ship isn't steady anymore, it's sinking, and they know it's sinking, so they're probably standing on a slanted deck, hearing the ocean rushing in, it's slippery, and probably having somebody, probably many people, grabbing at any life jacket they can get, and probably don't care who they're getting it from. They're doing the best they can, and then even when they realize everybody else has jumped overboard, fending for themselves, these guys link arms and sing and pray.
That was the last time they saw him.
Yeah.
And that's, you know,
But right to the end, just selfless, just
You know,
they deserve that medal.
You know, you sit there and you look at, there are similarities to the other tragic ship that sunk in that area,
Right.
The Titanic. Those icy waters. I mean, you're not going to last long.
Well, these 4 chaplains, they, you know, that's the whole point of this story and the memorial service, is to pay homage to 4 priests, men of the cloth, really, that came together, unified, to help these other gentlemen that were jumping into the water.
Right. You know, I mean, it was mentioned
Or
earlier,
falling.
this selfless act. I mean,
Selfless act, absolutely.
You know, the American Legion, I think I touched on it a little bit when you had mentioned the 75th anniversary. But, you know, the American Legion's role in honoring the 4 chaplains has been around for a long time.
Well, Chuck, one of the 4 pillars of the American Legion, things that we strive to do and we have made commitment to do, is to not only take care of our veterans and the rehabilitation of our veterans, but to take care of the children and the education of our children nationwide. And we, I believe that that's one of the reasons why we do the services throughout the nation, and they do. It's not done every state or at every location on the day of February 3rd, but they do it because of that and to honor these 4 selfless chaplains. So.
And not every post throughout the country has the opportunity to do it either.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're going to get to Connecticut's role in a little bit, but you know, if you Google the 4 chaplains, you're going to get a lot of posts throughout the country that actually, you know, take time to honor these 4 heroes. You know, you might as well just jump into Connecticut. I mean, as far as Connecticut, I mean, before you guys taking this over, and there was only three other locations. American Legion Post 154 in Thompsonville. They had a ceremony up in St. Patrick's Church, right around the corner from their post.
Yes.
Then there was one down in, was it?
Seymour.
Seymour
Post 133.
No, 133's South Windsor. But anyway, it's a Seymour Post, and they actually go from church to church down in the valley. They don't just stay in Seymour. They hit all the denominations, and every year on the date of this tragedy, February 3rd, they do, and I've been to that one. It's very impressive.
They also do one in the other side of the state, over in Taftville, Post 104. I understand they do theirs at the Post, which is fine. It's still getting the message out there and honoring these 4 chaplains. So,
well, if you look nationwide, most of them are done in Legion halls themselves. Not every post has access to a church.
Right.
Denomination. I mean, it's nice to the one up in Thompsonville. I mean, that's at the Catholic Church up there, and it's actually in conjunction with the service. The one down in Seymour, they actually have a specific ceremony separate from a church service, inside one of the churches down there. So, and then of course with the addition of Post 209, hopefully we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But with you guys doing a ceremony honoring these 4 chaplains, it will, take care of the central Connecticut area. So hopefully we have areas throughout the state that, there's an opportunity to honor these 4 chaplains. And we were just talking about the Post 209's role in this. I understand there's an event coming up.
Yes.
Brian, you want to touch base on that?
February 3rd at Asbury Methodist Church in Forestville, Connecticut, we are going to be doing a live ceremony honoring the 4 chaplains, and all are welcome to attend. It's a very well done ceremony, and it's something that does the state of Connecticut and the town of Forestville very, very proud.
And it's the 3rd annual.
3rd annual, that is correct.
And each year that you've been doing it,
gets better.
It gets better, bigger. And this year, I mean, we can let the viewers know. I mean, we got bagpipers involved. We've got somebody playing taps from one of the high schools. It's a big deal, and also one of the things with the American Legion is youth. So there's the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We actually also have confirmation on Miss Bristol, Miss Forestville, Miss Teen, and Miss Teen Forestville and Miss Teen Bristol, who more than likely are going to be there. So I mean, there's a, it gets better in each year, and that's the key. And anything else that you can think of?
Well, being a bit of a trivia buff,
historian.
And a historian, yes, indeed. In May of 1948, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, there was a postage stamp commemorating the 4 chaplains. I don't know if the camera's got that. Okay. And I have pictures of a one-time medal awarded to, posthumously of course, the 4 chaplains. This was authorized by Congress once only, never to be presented again, by President Eisenhower and the Congress at the time. That's the front and back of the medal. Minted once and once only. That's all I have on any. Oh yes, one more item. The chapel of the 4 chaplains in Philadelphia, I believe that's where they held the first 4 chaplain ceremony. I could not get confirmation on that. It has moved to 1201 Constitution Avenue in Philadelphia. It's the site of a former World War II Navy chapel. To the best of my knowledge, again, I can't get confirmation, but I believe that's where the first ceremony was held.
They actually give awards. They give awards on a national level And a lot of the posts do give awards to outstanding citizens in the area. So I mean, it's a big thing, and the key is to keep educating the next generation, so the legacy of the four chaplains don't fade away. As with any other of our historic battles and so forth. Just to recap real fast, the ceremony, February 3rd.
February 3rd.
Asbury United Methodist Church at 90 Church Ave in Forestville. It starts at 7. You have, afterwards, there's going to be refreshments. I think you're going to have pizza and
soda, water.
Yeah.
Beverages, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be it's going to be a good event. If we encourage all viewers to attend if they can. So,
can I say one more thing on how amazing this story is? The four chaplains, all of them came from different religions. One was a Catholic priest, two were ministers, Protestant ministers, and one was a rabbi. When the ship was sinking and they ran out of life vests, they took their life vests off and they gave them to the four young men that needed them. Yeah. The rabbi didn't call out for a Jew; he gave it to the next person that was there. The Protestant ministers didn't call out for a Protestant; they just gave it to the next person that was there. The Catholic priest wasn't searching for a Catholic; he gave it to the next person that was there. Many of the witnesses said that they can hear him singing as the ship was singing and holding arms as the Dorchester was sinking, and many of them have stated that that's what kept them alive.
Yeah, it's an interesting story of heroics. There's so much more we can actually talk about on this subject. It's tough to get it into 25 minutes. So with that being said, that's pretty much all the time we have for this episode of the Veterans Corner. We hope that all of the viewers enjoyed the show and found it enlightening. We certainly encourage everyone to visit the Four Chaplains website and also to attend upcoming ceremonies honoring them. If you for more information, I believe it's just go to Four Chaplains and anything will come up. A special thanks to our guests from the American Legion, Post 209.
Glad to be here, Chuck.
Thank you for having us, Chuck.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was a very informative 25 minutes. Incidentally, Post 209 will be our primary sponsor, for this show as we go forward. We want to thank you very much for your support. With that being said, once again, thank you. And I'm Chuck Woodin for the Veterans Corner. Thank you for watching, and good night.